Welcome to Technically Zen, a GovCIO media and research podcast where chaos meets clarity. Take a breath, lean in, and let's find your Zen.
We have a very special guest today. Her name is Tiziana Barrow. She's the founder of Safer Shift, which is a wonderful company that does a lot of amazing work in really making cybersecurity palatable and more acceptable and approachable for the common user out there. So welcome all of our users to get ready for this wonderful episode. So welcome to our show, Tiziana.
Hello. Hello, Jyoti. How are you?
I'm doing great. So happy to have you here today. So let's jump right in. And our users are dying to hear from you. And I know based on our past conversations, you have a lot to offer the world and with such elegance and grace and positive energy. So I'm really looking forward to our episode today.
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump right in. So I know you wear two powerful hats. One is a cybersecurity leader in your space, and you're a mother of a teen daughter. And I know all too well, being a mom of three and one of them being a teen myself, how challenging but also rewarding that can be. Can you tell our audience a little bit about how motherhood has influenced the way you lead and show up in our industry?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really quite interesting. I think I learned relatively quickly that I had to play the coach role rather than the I don't know, controlling role or the restrictions. I found that immediately backfired, right? I kind of really set up myself the goal to teach her to become independent in terms of like self-hygiene, like flossing and brushing, and financials. By the age she was 13, of course, she had a phone because she was commuting to and from school and we needed to teach her, as well as a credit card. So, and then of course the tablet and the laptop followed. So the best way was for her to own and have agency and be responsible rather than me trying to control her. So the more I was able to kind of give her the guidelines and then just really open that, she will make a mistake. So it will actually open up the opportunity for us to have a conversation around it and then redirect. And what I learned is that actually it was during those hard conversations that we were building confidence in our ability to self-regulate and to choose. And so that is very much the same at work, right? I mean, especially, when you have a team, individuals really want to be autonomous, they want to be independent. So being able to kind of give them the tool, and then let them run at it. But if there is a mistake, don't make it a mistake. Make it actually a learning opportunity, and build that muscle of being able to actually make powerful choices. So I definitely think that being responsible and coaching her really made me build that muscle to become a coach in the workplace as well.
That's great. I think I've also encountered situations where the way our parents parented us, back when we grew up is really not working in our generation these days, where, you sit where you're told to sit, you speak when you're told to speak, really doesn't work with our generation of kids.
Mhm.
I think it really does involve us as leaders, as parents to really learn and grow with the times, not feel like we have to do things in a certain way because our parents did things in a certain way, or even I think you broached this area of really understanding like what is going to work with your own kids versus what does society say, or what is our older generation or elderly generation say, and how to do things in a certain way. And you've brought it back to our cyber industry as well, as you mentioned, where it really does involve a lot of coaching as leaders, not consequences and punishments, per se. So
Right.
that's wonderful. And maybe that goes along with our, it's a great segue to our next question. I know you talk a lot about normalizing cyber, and how to make it more palatable for our even if it's not for, I know our general audience in this space is other technology leaders or technology specialists or professionals out there, but that's a very small portion of the rest of the world that really wants nothing to do with cybersecurity, or they're scared of it. So what does that actually look like to normalize cyber in everyday life for someone who doesn't consider themselves technical?
Well, I want to point out that the average, well, citizens or individuals are won't make up organizations. And the biggest risk factor in organization are still the human. We've been growing technology this problem for a long time, but personally feel that we have overlooked the human factor. And the training right now really addresses the knowledge piece, but the knowledge doesn't normally translate or doesn't always translate into a behavioral change or into a habit. So when I talk about rationalizing cybersecurity, I really talk about changing the narrative so that the individuals can connect the links, right? We teach our kids stranger danger, yet we're quick to click on links from unknown sources or picking up phone calls from unknown numbers. We trust way too quickly, right? So I believe that the dots haven't been connected between this digital world and this physical world. And so when I talk about normalizing cybersecurity, yes, it needs to be normalized for users or for the average individuals, but the average individual is what makes up organizations. So ultimately, it plays a huge role in reducing the risk factor, the human risk factor within organizations.
Yeah, that's great. I know in the cyber world, we look at our humans as the weakest link, but I've really been passionate in my work to empower our humans to be our biggest assets. Because at the end of the day, we're doing all of this work, the technology, the cyber, the AI for human beings. We're not doing it for robots or something else. Like at the end of the day, like humans are creating the technology. Humans are also the users of our technology and cyber at the end of the day. So I've done a lot of work myself because I'm really passionate about helping our people and really empowering them to do the right thing. So, having the common user that's not technical to know, oh, this link looks a little suspicious. Maybe I shouldn't click on it, or maybe I should call my security officer, or just ask someone like, does this look legit to you? Versus, oh yeah, I'm tired. I'm too tired. Like, let me just go ahead and click on it, and then now you're putting your whole organization at risk. Or in a personal situation, if you're at home, you're putting your home network at risk as well. That could affect the rest of your family. So great points. Now you talk a lot about removing the shame in people speaking up after incidents or even mistakes. Why is shame so present in the cybersecurity world? And what can we do to shift that culture towards more empowerment instead of silence?
It definitely it feels that like mistake or clicking on unknown links, it feels like, oh, I should have known better, or I should have done differently, right? It goes into almost a personal attack situations where there needs to be a clear distinctions between like you as an individuals having made a choice, and so distinguish between you, the individual, and the action that you took. um, and so,
Mm.
so that is, I think we collapse the two oftentimes. And so
Mm.
we don't recognize that the action can be like, or the choice, can be changed and can be influenced. And And again, it's like a muscle that needs to be built, right? It doesn't come as second nature, and we see that for our kids, right? Repetition, and it takes time. It's like when they learn to read, right? And it's the same thing. I mean, security is so filled with jargon and a lot of technical terms that the average person doesn't often like grasp. It's almost like you're speaking to a doctor or a lawyer, right? You almost need to have a translator to be able to make sense of it. And so there is really a communication gap, as far as I'm concerned, between
Yeah.
the terminology that's used. And oh, never mind. Let's talk about the acronyms. So it's
Yeah.
I think whenever there is a mistake, it's not perceived as an opportunity, it's actually perceived as, like you mentioned before, a punishment, an opportunity for punishment. So I think
That's a lot that you packed in there,
yeah,
and it's intriguing for me to see how you're bringing a lot of your parenting principles and what you learned, the lessons learned from parenting into the organization. And I know we're not calling uh, those that we lead in an organization as children, but I think there's a lot to say for the working parents that are dealing with chaos in their household. And all the lessons they gain by that, and how great leaders like you are bringing that into everything else that you do, whether it's in your organization or whether it's maybe other parts of your life. And as you mentioned, it's really trying to take the lessons learned from mistakes that people made, and you had a great point about differentiating the person from the actions. And I've had to work on this myself with my own children, where if there's a particular child that's always causing some sort of disruption, and it's really hard for you to differentiate. Okay, this is not who the child is. They're just taking these actions that may not be favorable, and maybe instead of resorting to punishments or consequences on a daily basis, maybe sit down with that child. Like, what's really going on there? Is there something else that the person or our child is facing that's causing them to take these actions? And what can we do as leaders to help with that? So those are great points. I'm definitely going to have to take this back home and sit with it to see how I can parent better. um, so, moving along to our next question. So, we have lots of different cybersecurity types of roles. SOC analysts, CISOs, auditors. There's so many different roles in cybersecurity, which is great. But especially for a SOC analyst that carry a pretty heavy emotional load and often feel isolated, and also probably burnt out as well, since they're constantly looking at alerts and potentially going through alert fatigue. What can we do as leaders to really understand, how can we support their mental well-being?
once upon a time, I like my first job actually in tech was being in tech support. And so literally I was going in, day out, like answering calls of users with problems, right? And that's very taxing. So I think that it's it's a huge emotional load that most organizations really underestimate. Those individuals need to, they're normally very analytical, they're very deep thinkers. They need to watch for anomalies, they need to stay in constant alert. And I think that is huge for the nervous system. So being able to appreciate the front line of the organizations, the personnel in the front line of the organizations, right? Because it's like, I mean, there is definitely a lot of, I think tier one, and possibly even tier two, a lot of the SOC analyst roles now, they've actually been replaced by a lot of the AI agents. And so really, you've got, the a lot of the analysts now actually really looking more at correlating rather than just looking out for anomalies. But regardless, right, understanding that there is a need for rotation, decompression, decompression, recognition, recognizing them that they are truly, carrying a huge responsibility. And also have have a career pathway, because it's so taxing that, some individuals might enjoy to stay in a SOC and work through solving all of those problems and be, the person that is constantly vigilant, but there is also a person that might want to take a path out of it. So having a career pathway, I think it's really important, so that those individuals in the front line don't burn out. And we also know that attacker really use that to their advantage, right? Because
Yeah.
most people don't perform well under stress. So
I know attackers have a lot more time on their hands to, to really go at it until they can get through than we do. So that leads me to ask. I know you're launching a company called Safer Shift. We talked about that in the introduction. Can you tell us a little bit more about the intention of Safer Shift, and the mindset shift it's trying to create to be safer together as a community? What kind of change are you hoping people feel or experience when they hear that message?
yeah, I kind of alluded a little bit before about the communication gap. The security is not very relatable. I mean, we've been on this planet and have kind of learned to defend ourselves, right? Yeah, now we are into a digital world and the dynamics are different. And so, but I don't think we have grasped that conceptually. And there hasn't been stories to connect the dots, right? It's like, as I said earlier, we tell our kids not to open doors to strangers, but we're clicking on links and not recognizing that the two are actually the same behavior in different environments. And it's like, so what's in the physical world? There is so much intelligence and intuition and that we already have, and it needs to be really bridged into our digital world. So it's like we teach our kids finance, hopefully we teach them how to stay safe, we teach them how their hygiene. We need to teach them also about the digital safety. So digital safety is definitely, something that needs to be part of the equation of an individual. And it's really quite fascinating. So I've identified this gap and I'm really passionate about it. And I've started interviewing a number of the senior individuals in the industry and just recognizing that a lot of the training right now really is not built for behavioral changes and or habits building. It's very much built around compliance and checklist and audits. And it's not allowing us to build that muscle that we need, because we check our phone every single day. We check our email every single day. So it needs to be continuous. It needs to be relatable. It needs to become so much more than it is.
Yeah.
Than a once a year or once a quarter kind of training.
Right. I think what I hear you saying is it needs to almost be like a daily practice to kind of create that habit versus once a year, like click next, click next, click next until you're done.
That's
So I can just get my certificate and be done with this.
Yeah.
And that's a great segue into our last question, which I always leave the audience with is, what kind of wellness tool or practice can you leave our audience with today to help them stay technically zen in the chaos of their world?
Well, I'm a pretty high energy individual, so I have whenever I have a chance, I do a walk and talk. I also have a walking mat under my desk and a balancing board. I have some gel balls for helping me actually concentrate and stay like on I guess my attention, and it does help me tremendously, but it's recognizing that it's we do sit at our desk 8 to 10 hours, so whenever we have an opportunity to engage our body, either more so than just our brain, because like we are so much in our heads nowadays. So that's why I'm saying any opportunity I get, I'll take it out in nature over phone calls instead than over Zoom. There is a different level of attention. There is a different level of connections, because it's like all of a sudden I'm not distracted by anything else on my desktop. I'm not distracted by the phone or anything else, because I'm on the phone, most likely having the headset. So I definitely feel that there needs to be a lot more balance and a lot more opportunities for us to actually, the desk is very restrictive. I personally, I do my best thinking when I'm in nature, when I'm swimming, or when I'm exercising. Those are my biggest, deepest thoughts are actually when I'm not on my desk.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And you know what, Tiziana, you convinced me as we were talking earlier to prep for this podcast, and I'm going to start incorporating this into my future episodes as well, where we're going to leave the audience with an actual exercise that they can do to keep themselves technically zen. So you know what, you're going to be my first guest to do this with me. So it is called the EFT tapping method, emotional freedom technique. Happy to share more information with our audience later about this, but you mentioned a quick way to kind of regroup and reset in the middle of chaos, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, or anywhere else. So let's just do it really quick so we can leave our audience in a technically zen mode. So today we're going to focus on our hand. Doesn't matter which hand. We're going to take 2 fingers from another hand, and we're just going to tap lightly right underneath our pinky finger. And then I'm going to combine this with a box breathing technique that I use almost every day, multiple times a day when I need to reset. So we're just going to take a deep breath in for 4 counts. Hold it for 4 counts. Take a deep breath out for 4 counts. And hold it at the bottom for 4 counts. All right, and you're welcome to keep going with this, but I guarantee you within like a couple of minutes of just doing this technique, you're going to feel completely recharged and start letting go of all those blockages in our system. So with that, thank you so much, Tiziana. It was so great to have you on the show today.
Technically Zen is a GovCIO media and research podcast hosted by me, Jojo D, a technology and cyber executive, author, coach, wellness expert, dance director, and mom of 3, exploring the human side of technology, leadership, and wellness in an increasingly complex world. To explore my books, coaching, speaking, and advisory work, please visit jyotidugar.com. For more episodes, please visit govciomedia.com. And remember, there is wisdom in the chaos. Let the chaos teach you. Lead with presence. And until next time, stay technically zen.